Through the passage of time, the 21st century metaphysical expert Yan Bingqing became the legitimate daughter of a general who had her destiny stolen, and her life was smooth sailing from then on. Does the scumbag father spoil his concubine, destroys his wife, and hides his wife and daughter under his nose to pamper them? She steps on a green tea woman and tears at a white lotus woman with her hands. Love brain mother digs wild vegetables and drinks rice congee. Let the mother go astray and peel off a layer of skin from the scumbag father. Being mocked without a support. The regent supports every request. Are you plagued by bad luck? The Regent King, who flirts with the fate of the heavenly dragon, rises in luck. On that day, Huang's destiny was about to be regained, and Yan Bingqing withdrew from the sidelines, preparing to clear the boundary. She had always been aloof, but the regent, who was indifferent to her, turned red in his eyes and said, "Woman, if you provoke me, why don't you?" Yan Bingqing's crisp and neat. Politely refuse. She cleared the fog and realized that she was still in the game, so she shamelessly turned around and begged for peace. The regent asked for stickers. Cangming's handsome face was gloomy and his aura was strong, but he said the most cowardly thing. "Unless we get married." On the way to finding the truth, a rival in love mocked, just the legitimate daughter of a general, not a relative of the imperial family. Sitting with you, lowering your value. Little did they know that her noble background and the fate of the heavenly phoenix had overshadowed all the noble women in the capital. Chapter 1. Worshipping the Rooster. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Those who have died know that opening their eyes again is either a journey or a rebirth. The Crown Prince's Mansion. In the wing room, a woman dressed in a bright red morning pearl robe fiddled with the golden tassels in front of her and looked cautiously at the antique decorations around her. She is a master of mysticism in the 21st century, who was struck by lightning when showing people feng shui in modern times. As soon as she opened her eyes, she penetrated into this body that died suddenly. The woman in my memory, also known as Yan Bingqing, has a straightforward personality and a prominent status. She is the legitimate daughter favored by the general's mansion and the granddaughter favored by the prime minister. She has lived a smooth life from childhood to adulthood. But recently she accidentally discovered a shocking secret, and then she kept getting unlucky. For example, now, the crown prince is delayed in the palace due to business and cannot come to worship. The officials of the Ministry of Rites are discussing whether to let her worship the rooster. Dingling bell. Suddenly, the crisp sound of bells rang outside the courtyard. Yan Bingqing's ears twitched lightly and instantly recognized the sound. This is the sound of the Sanqing bell. She pushed the door and followed the bell to find someone. A young Taoist appeared by the lake and said, "Almsgiver, your face is full of red light and the sky is full. Judging from your appearance, you and your soon-to-be worshipped husband are diligent, handsome, and have a loud voice. The sound of the qin and se is harmonious between husband and wife. Oh, the harmonies of the qin and se. Do you crow with a rooster? The rooster who is about to pay respects to me is a rooster." Yan Bingqing sneered and tugged at the corner of her mouth. Ah! How could that be? The little Taoist calculated in disbelief. After finishing his calculations, he confidently said, "But your family background is prominent, your parents are loving, and you have been carefree since childhood." No. Taoist, you're wrong again. My father has a mistress behind my mother's back, and illegitimate daughters are as old as me. Suddenly, a few frames flashed through her mind, which were the future scenes predicted by the heavenly eye, which she had cultivated as a master of metaphysics. Half a year later, the former owner's scumbag will be recommended as the prime minister. He will poison the former owner's maternal grandfather and grandmother to death, force the former owner's mother to hang herself, and send the former owner to work as a military prostitute in the barracks. Under the torture of many men, he will suffer from dirty diseases and die. But the scumbag father, on the other hand, had unlimited fame and fortune as he recognized his mother and daughter, who replaced her in marrying the crown prince and became the envy of the crown princess in the capital. Yan Bingqing sympathized with the original owner and hated him so much that his teeth itched. The original owner's death was really strange. Why did he suddenly die suddenly? Yan Bingqing pinched her index finger, and a dark color flashed in her eyes. The original owner should have been the fate of the heavenly phoenix, but why is his destiny so foul-smelling and his fortune so poor that it feels like he has fallen into a thatched cottage? There is only one possibility. She has had her destiny changed. The little Taoist also widened his eyes and said incredulously, "Benefactor, what is your birth date in 8 characters?" Yan Bing quickly and refreshing reported the 8 characters. The little Taoist calculated and his face turned pale. He looked at her with pity and said, "That's it. I'm afraid someone has changed your destiny." Yan Bingqing was still about to speak when a guard shouted from a distance, "I heard a godly stick sneaking in. Search." The little Taoist walked away with a mysterious expression. Taoist, Taoist. Yan Bingqing still wanted to pursue someone, but the little Taoist was nowhere to be found. Suddenly, she felt a thrust coming from behind and pounced. Yan Bingqing fluttered and fell, like a red butterfly falling into the water. Then there was a loud thud on the lake's surface. "Help, someone here." Yan Bingqing pushed the crown prince's beloved Miss Bai into the water. No wonder she didn't see anyone when she paid her respects. She was hiding in the backyard killing people and silencing them. The heavens opened their eyes. Miss Bai is fine. She drowned in the water by herself. Ha ha ha. After being rescued, Yan Bingqing lay on the ground with severe pain in her heart and lungs, and her mouth and nose kept spraying water out, cough cough cough. The person who harmed her has taken action. Although the person was wearing a veil, she could see clearly. The person who pushed her was Yan Yujia, the illegitimate daughter of the scumbag father. The scumbag father tricked the original owner into telling his mother that she was the daughter of a cousin from another country. On the steps, the only witness of this incident, Regent Huang Cangming, sat in a sandalwood wheelchair. His gloomy silhouette is sharp and angular, with a pair of peach blossom eyes curled outwards and inwardly hooked, and his thin lips under the high bridge of his nose appear slightly indifferent. He was dressed in a black auspicious cloud robe, wearing a jade belt and crown. His temperament was as noble as moonlight, and coupled with the reversal of the appearance of all beings, it seemed that he was born to be so arrogant. Not dead. His tone had a hint of something in it. Yan Bingqing's gaze fell on his legs, and everyone had weaknesses, including a big shot like him. She got up and looked into his eyes, pinching the formula in her hand, weakly saying, "Help me, I can treat your leg." This is not a lie. She is not only proficient in metaphysics but also has a considerable amount of research on the technique of Qi Huang. In an instant, Cangming's facial features were covered with a layer of cold frost, and his thumb unconsciously pressed against the edge of the wheelchair armrest. He looked at her, as if distinguishing between truth and falsehood. "Bitch. Our palace has already agreed to marry you, why haven't you let go of Pian Pian?" The handsome man in a robe walked confidently from the corridor. Bai Pian is the crown prince's sharp heart and also the daughter of the minister of rights. The crown prince Mo Huang, who had always been in seclusion, appeared as soon as he heard Bai Pian fall into the water. He quickly brought the unconscious Bai Pian to the side room for treatment by the imperial physician. He walked up to Yan Bingqing with his angry eyes wide open, and slapped her in the face. Just as her palm was about to touch her cheek, she perfectly dodged her body and angrily said, "I didn't. I was also pushed into the water. Are you still insincere? Who in the capital doesn't know that you admire this palace to the point of madness? You imitate others all day long, attracting ridicule." Mo Huang trembled with anger and retorted without hesitation. Yan Bingqing looked at him with disdain. She looked down upon men who beat women the most. Such a dog should go to hell. At this moment, a woman wearing a peach-colored embroidered skirt and a falling horse bun walked over with her skirt hem. Her eyes turned red, as if she had just cried. "Cousin, last time you said you didn't want Sister Pianpian to appear in front of His Highness. I thought it was a joke. I didn't expect you to be so stubborn." As soon as these words were spoken, the onlookers all began to lament and discuss. Yan Bingqing is really vicious. Tisk, why is the granddaughter of Prime Minister Huang so virtuous? Yan Bing is so clear that even her blood is going against the current. Although I don't know the birth date and 8 characters of Yan Yujia, the scent of her destiny is extremely similar to the original scent of her master's destiny. Most likely, she stole the original owner's destiny. If Yan Yujia succeeds this time, her destiny will weaken by 1 point, and Yan Yujia's destiny will strengthen by 1 point. When her life falls to the bottom, their destiny will be completely replaced. At that time, she will become a military prostitute, and Yan Yujia will become a noble crown princess. No way. Cousin, just admit it. Your Highness won't blame you. Yan Yujia wiped away her tears and said with resentment. Yan Bingqing. You can plead guilty, and this palace can also cancel the engagement. Let go of each other, don't delay the beautiful years of elegance. Mo Xuanhuang's eyes were filled with hatred, as if looking at a pile of filth. Your Highness will not pursue it, cousin. You must admit it quickly, urged Yan Yujia. Yan Bingqing's eyes were so cold that they almost froze. If she admitted it, her reputation would be completely tarnished. She would become a street mouse that everyone would shout and fight against, and her fortune would run to Yan Yujia's side, and Yan Yujia's fortune would flourish. She looked at Mo Cangming on the steps as if seeking help, her round apricot eyes moist and clear, like the eyes of a startled deer. Without receiving a response, she could only turn her gaze and say, Cousin, why have you been wanting me to admit it so much since just now? As a member of the Yan family, what benefits can you gain if I kill by Pianpian? Yan Yujia didn't expect this fool to be so good at scolding people. After a pause, she said, I'm just standing on a fair standpoint and can't bear to let your Highness be deceived. My cousin is too concerned about my fiancé A.E. It's really strange. Yan Bingqing said, weighing 1,000 pounds. The onlookers also noticed something was wrong. This Yan Yujia wants to make her cousin confess while also caring about the crown prince. Does this show that she has feelings for her cousin's husband? Mo Xianhuang roared softly, enough. Yan Bingqing, don't worry about talking about anything else. If you don't admit it today, this palace will let you soak the pig cage. Why admit that I didn't do it? The crown prince's good move. Did he kill me so that you could be with by Pianpian openly? Yan Bing replied with a clear and unyielding aura. She wouldn't be intimidated by them and quickly admit her guilt. Her backstage is a prime minister whom the emperor reveres 3 times. If possible, let the people of Dali Temple come and investigate in person. Dare to argue. Someone, soak her in a pig cage. Mo Xianhuang ordered solemnly. Yan Bingqing remained calm and composed, once again pinching the formula with her hand towards Mo Cangming. At that moment, Mo Cangming frowned and his body seemed to be in pain. His mouth seemed to be controlled by someone, and he couldn't help but open it. He paused word by word and said, just now, I happened to pass by. Yan Bingqing was indeed pushed into the water by a masked person. Yan Bingqing looked at him jokingly. What if you don't want to help her? She has her own way to make him tell the truth. Uncle Huang, what do you mean? Mo Xianhuang couldn't believe his ears. Yan Yujia felt grateful for wearing a veil while her heart pounded. Why did the regent speak for this unlucky ghost? Your Highness is about to pay his respects, how could the regent appear in the backyard? Yan Yujia asked innocently. Mo Cangming's gaze brushed coldly over her, and he turned the emerald trigger on his left thumb without hesitation, saying, What's with you? But cousin. Before she could finish speaking, Yan Bingqing interrupted her and said, "Is my cousin questioning the regent? Why do you hope that I kill by Pian so much? What benefits can you get from it?" Yan Bingqing used her strength to strike. As soon as these words were spoken, other guests hastily said, "I heard that Miss Tang came from the countryside and stayed with the Yan family. She must have wanted to ruin Yan Bingqing's wedding and marry the crown princess herself. TSK, don't you even take a pee to take care of yourself? The country bumpkin still wants the position of crown princess. Perhaps it was her who pushed Yan Bingqing and Bai Pian into the water with one stone and two birds." Yan Yujia's tears swirled in her eyes as she weakly defended, "I don't have any." No one believed her, she could only cry and run away in embarrassment. The matter was resolved, but more and more guests gathered to watch. Although Mo Xianhuang didn't want to believe it, the fact was that Uncle Huang had always been unfriendly, so there was no need to help Yan Bingqing deceive him. With this in mind, he felt a little more guilty towards Yan Bingqing. In order to maintain his dignity, he forced out a smile and said, "Bingqing, let's go. Pay respects." "No. Everyone knows that the crown prince wants to soak me in a pig cage just now. For the sake of my life, let's give up the wedding." Yan Bingqing retorted with a strange tone. Mo Xianhuang couldn't believe it. Yan Bingqing was clearly obsessed with him before, so why didn't she just say a few words and then refuse to marry? He smiled gently and said, "Bingqing, are you joking? Who else do you want to marry if you don't marry this palace?" Yan Bingqing glanced around and finally fixed his gaze on Mo Cangming with satisfaction. "I want to marry him." Chapter 2. Our Secret. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Mo Cangming's heavenly court is full, with a rosy face, a high and straight nose, and eyes like peach blossoms. This is the standard appearance of a prosperous wife. The most crucial thing is that his destiny has a very sweet taste. If she could have more contact with such a lucky person, her own destiny would be more stable. The onlookers gasped for breath, and in the wheelchair, Mo Cangming's face was even darker than Mo's. "Bingqing, you." Mo Xianhuang felt his face being repeatedly trampled on by Yan Bingqing as he threw it to the ground. He is in his prime, with a healthy body. Yan Bingqing doesn't want him, but he wants him to be disabled. Isn't this hitting his face? At that moment, an elderly man with gray hair walked over in a noble purple robe. Prime Minister Wang Yao stared at Mo Xianhuang with a lively gaze and said, "Crown Prince, I have heard about the matter just now. The state of Great Wei has always attached great importance to etiquette and law, and the auspicious time has passed. The emperor has issued an edict to cancel the engagement." What? Mo Xianhuang should have been happy and finally could be with Pian. For some unknown reason, a faint regret rose in his heart. Marriage may or may not be possible, but how can the crown prince be despised by the legitimate daughter of the general's mansion? The crown prince has achieved his wish. I wish the crown prince and Miss Bai a happy marriage. Remember to invite me to your next wedding, Yan Bingqing sarcastically said. What he said was like inviting someone to frame Yan Bingqing, deliberately delaying the auspicious time, and ruining the wedding. You. Mo Xianhuang wanted to explain, but the more he explained, the more he felt guilty and could only break his teeth and swallow blood. He was extremely embarrassed and angry, turning around with a big red face and leaving. Although the guests had many speculations in their hearts, they dared not speak and quickly dispersed. Yan Bingqing did not forget Mo Cangming who had just helped. She asked Wang Yao to wait for her on the carriage first. Wang Yao has always favored Yan Bingqing, naturally through his granddaughter. A cold and deep male voice rang out from behind once again, "Blasphemy against my king first. If you let me down again, your head on the neck will not be able to be saved. Don't be so fierce, didn't I just say I wanted to marry you? Naturally, I won't let you down." Yan Bingqing teasingly pulled out a copper coin from her sleeve and threw it at Mo Cangming's knee. Cangming did not dodge at all. Bang, the copper coin hit his knee and fell to the ground. You have healthy legs but no knee-jumping reflex. I'm afraid you've been poisoned by cold and frozen your veins, she analyzed professionally. The man's peach blossom eyes flashed with a hint of appreciation, and his fierce anger was restrained. Mind your mouth, don't make this public, he said. Yan Bingqing walked out and joked, this is our secret, so naturally no one else will know. Cangming's ears turned red, and he stared at her back with a faint gaze. In half an hour, I want to know all the background of this woman, he said. Why did the legitimate daughter of a general who is said to have no confidence suddenly become eloquent and knowledgeable in medicine? Also, why couldn't he resist speaking his heart just now? Yes, the guard clenched their fists. Wang Yao and his father Yan Changhe's carriage were parked separately at the entrance of the crown prince's mansion. Without hesitation, Yan Bingqing pulled his mother Wang Siki and chose Wang Yao's carriage. As soon as she got on the carriage, Wang Siki burst into tears. She was in her 30s and had a beautiful appearance. She cried bitterly, making people feel heartbroken. Wang Siki cried, where did the assassin come from so ruthless? He almost caused an accident with my Bingqing and even ruined your marriage. Wang Yao's face was also full of heartache. My grandfather wouldn't have lightly exposed this matter. However, the crown prince is indeed not a good match, so there's no need to regret it. As soon as these words were spoken, Wang Yao and Wang Siki both observed Yan Bingqing's reaction. After all, she had been most obsessed with the crown prince before. But there was no sadness on her delicate little face, she just obediently replied, grandfather was right. By the way, mother, do you think daddy is a bit strange? Where's strange? Wang Siki was confused. Wang Yao frowned and said, ice clear, what do you mean? Just take Yan Yujia and her daughter home to live, Yan Bingqing hinted. They didn't know about Yan Yujia's slander of Yan Bingqing just now. Wang Siki's puzzled expression disappeared instantly, and she smiled happily. Both of them are from the countryside. Your father is the wife and daughter of a distant cousin of the same clan. He's just helping them out. Ah, but Yan Changhe should also be kind to the place. Good people will suffer losses, Wang Yao reminded. Yan Bing was so calm that he wanted to explode. The scumbag took the third mother and daughter home and gave Wang Siki a green hat, but Wang Siki told Wang Yao that he was a good person. However, it can also be seen from this how well Yan Changhe and the third mother and daughter disguised themselves. In the eyes of the world, Yan Changhe is a perfect man. Although he made a fortune by relying on the prime minister, he has good political achievements, loves his wife and daughter, and has a gentle temperament. Although he gave birth to a daughter, he is not prepared to take a concubine. If she rashly claims that Yan Changhe is a scumbag, no one will believe her, and even think she is crazy. So she could only slowly figure it out and gradually let Wang Siki discover the true face of Yan Changhe. Yan Bingqing lowered her eyes and took a nap when she suddenly noticed a yellow triangular talisman hanging around the waists of Wang Siki and Wang Yao. This is a disaster 7-kill talisman that is extremely similar to a safety talisman, but its effect is completely opposite. This is the original owner's birthday party, delivered by a Taoist to their doorstep, and each of their families has one. Since then, the original owner's luck has been declining day by day, and it turns out that the change of life cycle started from that time. Mother, grandfather, I think this talisman is useless. Let's not wear it anymore, Yan Bingqing said with a tearful tone. Seeing her frightened, Wang Siki and Wang Yao felt extremely heartbroken and immediately put away the talisman. Wang Siki complained to her daughter, yes. This talisman is useless, it doesn't even protect us, Bingqing. General's mansion, West Wing room. As soon as Yan Yujia entered the door, she had a sad expression on her face. She seemed to have been hollowed out, and she didn't even know how she came back. There is a woman sitting in front of the desk, with a pair of affectionate fox eyes and dressed in an elegant blue shirt, practicing calligraphy with a pen. Although she is almost 40 years old, she is well maintained and has almost no wrinkles on her face. She threw herself into Zhou Shuaqin's arms and sobbed with grievances, "Mom, I'm sorry, I failed. I just..." After speaking about her recent experience, Zhou Shuaqin did not blame her, but gently asked, "Jie, do you know where you went wrong?" After thinking for a few seconds and facing her mistake, Yan Yujie analyzed, "I was impulsive. Just now, I was determined to frame her and let her fortune decline. I didn't expect the regent to intervene. This time I fell, I'll get up next time. At least if you didn't let her marry the crown prince, it means she's already starting to suffer. When she's at the bottom of the valley and the Huang family's heart is exhausted, your father can take over the position of prime minister and take us home with dignity. Tomorrow, you can apologize to her, go to the garden party with her, and then know what to do." Zhou Shuaqin asked. Yan Yujie cleverly said, "Make friends with other officials, make them like me, and isolate Yan Bingqing." How clever. Zhou Shuaqin doted on her nose, her eyes flashing with cunning. Being isolated can greatly affect one's fortune. "Mother, don't worry, I will definitely retrieve my father from the bad woman." Yan Yujie was full of confidence. She doesn't want to be a wild seed without a father anymore. She and her mother also want to have a home. Zhou Shuaqin's eyes flashed brightly. Although Yan Changhe was born as a military general, he has always been prepared for the future. Over the years, I have also learned a lot of political skills and the responsibilities of civil servants from Wang Yao, who is an old man who never dies. In addition, the sage has repeatedly hinted that he only trusts Wang Yao and his people. So as long as Wang Yao nods, Yan Changhe takes over the phase with certainty. As soon as Yan Bingqing and Wang Siki returned to the mansion, Yan Changhe, who had just been neglected, came to ask for warmth and comfort. "Ice clear, what happened just now? Why didn't you ride in Dad's carriage?" Yan Changhe doted on her head and rubbed it, pretending to be a good father. Yan Bingqing pouted exaggeratedly and said, "Dad, you're still talking. Just now, Yan Yujie accused me of blaspheming the regent. The crown prince almost made me soak a pig cage." Upon hearing this, Wang Siki burst into tears and said, "Changhe, look at us, we're almost as clear as ice. We'll provide them with food and drink. Why is she such a little girl with such a dark heart?" "Madam, don't be upset. I'll go talk to them now. They are not sensible and have no bad intentions, they just like to chew their tongues." Although Yan Changhe is not a son.In.law, he is not much different from a son.In. law. He is most afraid of appeasing Wang Siki and has sued Wang Yao. "Then you go quickly." Wang Siki was not a narrow-minded person, and could even be said to be lacking in heart. As soon as she heard this, she forgave. Yan Changhe immediately rushed towards the western wing, complaining in his heart all the way. Yujie was also too careless. He hasn't transmitted any intelligence or talent. Yan Bingqing looked at Yan Changhe's back, her eyes slightly narrowed. She will gradually expose their true faces, demand everything her grandfather gave him, and let the scumbag spit out everything he eats. Chapter 3. Embarrassing oneself at the garden party. You are listening at Novel Full.audio. The next morning, Yan Bingqing received an invitation to a garden party. In the past, the original owner would never go there. The original owner was tormented by the poor thoughts of Yan Changhe from a young age, so there was no need to make too many friends. Making friends didn't require spending money, and it was also easy to develop a competitive temperament. Women didn't need to study, just be happy and happy. 1 or 2 months was enough, and dressing simple would only make their future husband's family like it. Under the brainwashing of Yan Changhe, Wang Siki surprisingly did not object to these misconceptions. And Yan Yujie, according to the original owner's memory, saw that Yan Yujie had many friends, who were well read in poetry and books, had a monthly income of 50 taels, and countless precious jewelry and exquisite dresses. The legitimate daughter of a prominent general and the granddaughter of a prime minister are so poor that their pockets are jingling, while the illegitimate daughter's purse is full of money that cannot be seen naked. Yan Changhe is such a dog, eating public and accumulating private. What a clever plan. Yan Bingqing put on the moon-white embroidered dress that the original owner once couldn't bear to wear, combed it in a lily bun, and paired it with a butterfly flapping hairpin in her hair, ready to go out. Just as she arrived at the door, Yan Yujie's eyes turned red as she said, "Cousin, yesterday was my fault. Uncle has already told me about it. I shouldn't trust others." "Oh." Yan Bing spat out a word as cold as ice beads, then bypassed her. Yan Yujie didn't expect Yan Bingqing, who was lacking in heart, to turn pale. After experiencing yesterday's incident, she seemed to have changed and said, "Cousin, uncle asked me to go to the garden party with you." Yan Bingqing did not stop her. After all, Yan Yujie had already moved out of Yan Changhe. If she refused, it would only scare the grass and the snake. Let's take a look later and see what kind of demon she wants to be. The garden party is hosted by Princess Chongyang, who loves to admire flowers and invites young officials of similar age to come to her backyard every month to admire precious flowers and plants. As soon as Yan Bingqing arrived, all the officials and young ladies were instantly enlightened. Before, Yan Bingqing always dressed plainly. Although she was the granddaughter of a high-ranking minister, her attire was not as good as that of a high-ranking maid. Nowadays, when I dress up, I never expect it to look bright and beautiful. And the person beside Yan Bingqing was also eye-catching. Yan Yujie was wearing a peach-colored embroidered neon dress, with a gold-inlaid jade hairpin inserted into her bun. In addition, her earrings, necklace, and bracelet were all made of gold, extremely precious. Although her temperament was slightly vulgar, they all showed her extraordinary status. "I am Yan Yujie, the younger sister of Bingqing's cousin. I have met all the sisters. Yujie has prepared a small gift, and I hope everyone doesn't mind." Yan Yujie gave a glance to the maid, who distributed the exquisitely embroidered silk handkerchief. Several young ladies from lower grades in the family were extremely fond of it and immediately flattered, "Your peony embroidery skills are extraordinary. It's still silk, and you spent a lot of money, right? My younger sister's embroidery skills are almost as good as those of the palace's embroidery ladies." The princess of Chongyang couldn't help but praise her. "Princess Miozan, I came out of work and embroidered urgently," Yan Yujie said with an expression that was not worth mentioning. The phrase, "embroidered urgently," is very clever, not only making all the ladies admire her embroidery skills, but even the princess of Chongyang looks up to her a bit. Yan Bingqing sneered in her heart, trying to win people's hearts. Isolate her. Lose her luck. She took the peony handkerchief and looked at it carefully for a while. The peony flowers on the handkerchief look familiar. Yes. They are exactly the same as those on my father's belt. This. Isn't it? Several officials exclaimed in surprise. But they had suspicions in their hearts. How could a person with good manners embroider so many handkerchiefs? Most likely, it was fake and embroidered by the nanny in the mansion. Yan Yujie's heart trembled, and she must not let Yan Bingqing discover that her father's belt was embroidered by her mother. She squeezed out a smile and said, "Cousin, are you mistaken? Peony flowers are very similar. How could I have misread my dad's belt? You live in my house, haven't you seen it?" Yan Bingqing grabbed onto this matter and didn't let it go. The princess of Chongyang also heard a subtle hint, and her eyebrows furrowed lightly. "Yan Yujie, what do you think? Perhaps I looked at uncle's belt, so I unconsciously imitated it when embroidering," Yan Yujie said vaguely, afraid of being discovered. As soon as these words were spoken, several young officials showed a suspicious expression on their faces, while others didn't pay attention. After this little interlude, Princess Chongyang and a few young ladies started chatting with Yan Bingqing about yesterday's wedding banquet. Yan Yujie was left on the side, feeling very uncomfortable in her heart. Her fragile self-esteem was hit. Why did Yan Bingqing mention the matter of borrowing? The general's mansion is clearly her home. Now it's okay, everyone is ignoring her. A young lady of low rank wanted to curry favor with Yan Yujia and curiously asked, Yujia, who is your father? He's also very prominent, isn't he? Yan Yujia rode a tiger and found it difficult to get off, feeling very embarrassed. Yeah, I'm also very curious. My dad has never said it before, and he won't even ask him. Yan Bingqing turned her head in confusion. My father is not in Beijing, she said vaguely. Yan Bingqing was not planning to let her go. She chased after her relentlessly and asked, it's okay. The Lord of Chongyang County has a lot of knowledge and knowledge. Perhaps the Lord of Chongyang County knows each other. Yes, you can tell me. Princess Chongyang's curiosity also rose. Yan Yujia felt the sun was extremely scorching and almost scorching her to death. In the midst of lightning and fire, she thought of a person's name and said, my father is Yan Junshan. As soon as these words were spoken, many official ladies opened their mouths and surrounded Yan Yujia like stars and moons. General Yan, that's the god of war of our Great Wei Kingdom. Defending our country at the border. Yujia, what's so embarrassing about that? You're so low-key. A few officials chattered away. The tension in Yan Yujia's heart dissipated, and she smiled, enjoying everyone's flattery. Anyway, Yan Junshan has been stationed at the border all along, and it is estimated that he will never come back in his lifetime. Yan Bingqing's eyes flashed with mockery. She choked her neck and asked a simple question, Uncle Yan, but I haven't heard of Uncle Yan having a daughter. I haven't heard of it either, said Princess Chongyang truthfully. After being authenticated by the princess, in an instant, everyone looked at Yan Yujia in confusion. Suddenly, someone in the crowd said, can't it be an illegitimate daughter? As far as I know, Yan Zhanshan only married one wife and did not take any concubines. No wonder she hesitated, it turned out she was too embarrassed to admit to being an illegitimate daughter. Hee. No wonder Sister Bingqing's father refused to say it. It's really hard to talk about the ugly things of her family. Yan Yujia's face turned red, but for the sake of dignity, she had to maintain a polite smile and pretend not to hear. I don't want her handkerchief anymore. You don't want it, and I don't want it either. A stone stirs up 1,000 waves. One young lady took the lead, and the rest of the ladies dared not keep anything from their illegitimate daughter, so they returned the handkerchief. Yan Yujia laughed more unsightly than crying in order to maintain her dignified image. Yan Bingqing didn't return her handkerchief, but a mocking smile appeared at the corner of her mouth. She really admires Yan Yujia, she's so embarrassed. It's fortunate that she wants to stay here and embarrass herself. At the upcoming garden party, everyone paired up to admire the flowers and plants, chatting and laughing, while Yan Yujia was alone at the end. Even the maid's gaze at her was contemptuous. Yan Yujia felt that visiting the park would be out of place with her. What was most infuriating was that Yan Bingqing was being pulled by the Chongyang princess to chat and laugh, while she was being secretly mocked by many people. She could only curse in her heart and even have a smile on her face. As the garden party came to an end, Yan Yujia couldn't help but raise her voice and say, my father is just a low-key person. Everyone has their own opinions, and the wise have their own opinions. A few young officials believed it and said, when will an illegitimate daughter wear gold and silver? If General Yan Junshan is an old woman, it is inevitable that he wants to hide it. Yan Bingqing's face flashed with ridicule as she walked forward with a simple expression. Uncle Yan has been stationed at the border for 18 years and has not returned to the capital for many years. It is only natural for him to feel sorry for his cousin. She deliberately bit the word, cousin, hard. She is only 17 years old, and Yan Yujia will only be younger than her. Yan Junshan went on an expedition outside the Great Wall for 18 years, but had a 17-year-old daughter in the capital. Chapter 4. Reminder to Mother. You are listening at novelfull.audio. As soon as these words were spoken, Yan Bingqing seemed like a rat with its tail stepped on, completely speechless. Most people cover their mouths and giggle, as if looking at a monkey. After 18 years of not returning to the capital, where did you get your 17-year-old daughter? Either it's an illegitimate daughter or her mother stealing men. Yan Bingqing is the legitimate daughter of the god of war, which has become an inconclusive event. The image of a wealthy lady, prestigious family, and skillful character that she originally intended to establish has left a gap. West Wing Room. As soon as Yan Bingqing entered the room, she slammed the door hard. She suppressed her hypocritical smile and sat at the tea table, tightly twisting her handkerchief as if she wished it were torn apart. Her face turned red with anger and soon she started to sob uncontrollably. Zhou Shuoqin looked at her calmly without saying a word. After a while, when Yan Bingqing's mood calmed down, Zhou Shuoqin took out a handkerchief to wipe her tears. Failed. Mom, just now. Yan Bingqing explained the process. After listening, Zhou Shuoqin said patiently, "You're not impulsive today, that's great. But what is our purpose? Let Yan Bingqing rot and smell, everything goes wrong, and turn into a street mouse," Yan Bingqing summarized concisely. But you've put all your energy into shaping yourself, even if it's successful, what if it's not? Yan Bingqing can't be greatly affected, and your approach is too indirect. Zhou Shuoqin pointed out the problem at once. Yan Bingqing listened attentively, knowing that her mother was very skilled. If her mother were a man, she would definitely achieve great things. Zhou Shuoqin patted her back and encouraged her, "Jie, do you know how to do it next time?" She pursed her lips, not as impulsive as yesterday, and thought seriously. She couldn't be impulsive, nor couldn't be direct despite thinking for a long time, Zhou Shuoqin did not urge. Half a pillar of incense time passed, and Yan Bingqing's gaze was resolute as she said, "Borrow a knife to kill. This is just like my daughter." Zhou Shuoqin looked at her with relief. The mother and daughter of the Western Wing were racking their brains to calculate, but Yan Bingqing couldn't bear to fall behind either. She originally planned to leave the garden party later, make more friends, and boost her luck. Unexpectedly, the reality went smoothly as everyone took the initiative to make friends with her and even arranged for her to go on a boat trip together next time. As the saying goes, sincerity is a must-kill skill, because the original owner's lack of heart and mind is well known in the capital, and there is no need to put in effort. Many people actively make friends with her. After returning to the mansion, Yan Bingqing specially took a handkerchief to find Huang. Under the window of the dormitory, Huang was embroidering obscene clothes for Yan Changhe, her eyes turning red. Seeing this scene, Yan Bingqing felt very uncomfortable. The scumbag really enjoyed the happiness of being together, wearing a loo dress embroidered by his wife and a belt embroidered by a mistress. Huang has a straightforward and simple personality, and can even be said to be a bit foolish and romantic, but this is not the reason why Yan Changhe and Zhou Shuoqin hurt her. She must give Huang a preventive shot in advance, guide her to think and discover Yan Changhe's disloyalty step by step, so that she can truly awaken. As the saying goes, accumulation makes mountains, and even the most foolish person knows the answer. Upon hearing the commotion, Huang immediately looked up and saw her daughter. With a loving smile, she said, "Ice clear, do the flowers of the Lord's family in Chongyang County look good?" She put down the embroidery pattern, poured tea and asked people to prepare melon and fruit dim sum. "Beautiful." Yan Bingqing imitated the original owner's personality and casually gestured what she had just seen. Huang doted on and rubbed her head. Yan Bingqing sat beside Huang, took out the handkerchief given by Yan Bingqing from her sleeve, and boasted, "Mom, look at this handkerchief, isn't it beautiful? It's made of silk." Huang eyes dimmed. The embroidery on it is exactly the same as that on Yan Changhe's belt and insole. Didn't Yan Chanha say that those things were made by the embroidery lady outside? Why is it so coincidental? Yan Yujie gave it to everyone and said she embroidered it herself. Also, she said she was the daughter of Uncle Yan Junshan. Mom, have you heard that Uncle Yan has a daughter? Anyway, neither I nor the princess have heard of it. Yan Bing said straightforwardly. Wang Siqi's mind flashed with speculations of Yan Junshan's illegitimate daughter and scheming woman. She snatched the handkerchief in a flustered state, her eyes full of disdain. Don't play with Yan Yujie in the future. Why? Her round eyes were filled with confusion. Wang Siqi felt that her words were inappropriate and she couldn't teach the child bad. She forced a smile and said, others are busy with embroidery, and I'm afraid you'll disturb them. Oh, Yan Bingqing nodded. This handkerchief. Wang Siqi originally wanted to ask about the peony flower again, but looking at her daughter's innocent face, she swallowed it and said, give it to my mother. Yan Bingqing pretended to be reluctant and said, okay. It seems that Wang Siqi is smarter than she thought, and she has made some discoveries. The taste of heartache is not good, but if you don't get through this pain, how can you face the more cruel reality? Yan Chanha's even more despicable face. With this in mind, she plans to add another dose of strong ingredients. For example, adding some feminine fragrance to Yan Chanha's body. When the sky was dark and desolate, Yan Chanha gently pushed open the bedroom door. As Yan Chanha lit the lamp and the candlelight illuminated the bedroom, his body trembled with fear. Surprisingly, Wang Siqi sat at the tea table with her back straight. Madam, why haven't you slept yet? Yan Chanha had been exhausted for a whole day before rushing back from the military camp, but still managed to smile. When Wang Siqi saw his embroidered belt, she felt like she had a thorn in her heart. Why did Yan Chanha want to deceive people? Who is the person who embroidered the flowers for him? You've been coming home late lately, Wang Siqi said coldly. Yan Chanha restrained his impatience and leaned forward to please Wang Siqi. He hugged Wang Siqi's shoulder and said, Madam, I'm not here for political achievements. This is how I can give you and Bingqing a better life. A better life for bullshit. Yan Yujie from the countryside is even more imposing than us. She gives silk handkerchiefs as soon as she makes a move, and we are as happy as if we have never seen the world before. You are so stingy. Wang Siqi knocked off his hand, getting angrier and angrier as he thought, looking at the man in front of us not as pleasing as before. Yan Chanha lowered his head and admitted his mistake. Yes, I was wrong. In the future, other girls from other families will have them, and we will all have them in Bingqing. Humph. That's about it. Wang Siqi still felt uneasy. Yan Chanha poked his neck and wanted to give Wang Siqi a kiss on the face, but Wang Siqi pushed him away and said, You sleep in the study tonight. Ah. Madam. Yan Chanha pitifully begged for mercy with a trembling voice. Wang Siqi became angry at the thought that embroidery was not as good as her daughter being a rural girl. She was so heartfelt that she went straight to the bed. Yan Chanha cursed inwardly. What disease does this foolish woman suffer from? Did your head get wet? It's not comparable to a snow chin at all. He suppressed his anger and stood by the bed pretending to be reluctant for a quarter of an hour, covering Wang Siqi with a blanket before blowing out the candles and leaving. At midnight, Yan Chanha was driven out of his dormitory. He was so lonely that he wanted to go to the West Wing to meet his lovely daughter and woman, but he thought of a plan and ultimately gave up. If he couldn't bear it, he would resort to big schemes. At the end of March, Yan Bingqing once again received an invitation, which was sent by Qian Xiaoman, the daughter of a fifth-grade official, to visit the lake. Yan Bingqing recalled that Qian Xiaoman was very unhappy with the original owner. Both of them had a carefree nature, and their words were inevitably stumbling, which led to a rift. Every time they met, they would argue. But Qian Xiaoman seems to really like Yan Yujie. Last time at the garden party, except for her, only Qian Xiaoman didn't return the handkerchief. She didn't want to participate, but in order to find the demon behind the scenes who stole her life and crack the life-swapping array, she had to play by the game and act according to Yan Yujia's expectations. Slowly lead out the demon path. Chapter 5. Suspects Locked Down. You are listening at Novel Full.audio. The afternoon sun was too scorching, so I chose to visit the lake in the early morning. At Chenshi, Yan Bingqing wore a hat and arrived on time for the appointment. As soon as she boarded the ship, a messy scent of powder came crashing towards her, mixed with various fragrances that almost made her vomit. In the cabin, Qian Xiaoman had already pulled Yan Yujia and laughed. On the deck at the bow of the ship, only Princess Chongyang stood still, Ping-ting. She is calm and kind, but there is a hint of alienation, and she has always only made friends with people who are not far from her own social status. On the entire cruise ship, only Yan Bingqing met her requirements. Unconsciously, Princess Chongyang stood with Yan Bingqing. Coincidentally, the regent's ship is also here today. Human nature is gossip, even the Princess of Chongyang is no exception. She pointed to a luxurious boat not far away. Upon hearing this, other officials and young ladies all ran to the bow of the boat curiously to look at the magnificent and carved dragon-painted building next to them. For a moment, the bow of the ship was filled with beautiful and graceful girls, which was also a beautiful scenery. Clear water and blue sky, clear sky and pleasant breeze. More than a dozen official ladies were chatting and laughing together, creating a harmonious atmosphere. The morning time passed in the blink of an eye. This makes Yan Bingqing very strange. Yan Yujia didn't actually make a move, this is not her style. As noon approached, the cruise ship gradually came to a stop around the lake. As Yan Bingqing was preparing to disembark, a scream came from behind. The usually calm Princess Chongyang covered her hair in a bun and looked flustered. "Where's my 100-sparrow hairpin? It's a reward from the Empress." Yan Yujia stepped forward and said, "Everyone, hurry up and find it. If the reward given by the Empress is lost, it will." She shook her head. Upon hearing this, the other officials quickly bent down and searched around. Yan Bingqing's eyes flashed with a hint of mockery. Princess Chongyang naturally won't let anyone disembark. This is a matter involving life. If the bouquet hairpin is really lost, even if the Empress Dowager does not want her life, it is inevitable that she will not be angry. After taking a moment to burn incense, Princess Chongyang's personal maid loudly said, "Just now, a young lady took the initiative to say she is willing to be searched. If she is willing to be searched, go to the cabin. No one wants to be suspected of being a thief or offending the princess, and many young ladies are eager to show their loyalty. Princess sister, I am also willing to have a body search." "Me too. I haven't done it before, I'm not afraid of being searched." A doubt flashed in Yan Bingqing's eyes as she asked herself, what is Yan Yujia doing? On the other side of the magnificent ship, Cangming was playing chess with friends in the cabin. He had a calm and dignified demeanor, with a pair of cold peach blossom eyes that left one unable to guess his emotions. Suddenly, the guard Zhu Li clenched his fists and said, "Master, the hairpin of Princess Chongyang on the neighboring ship has been lost. I'm afraid Miss Yan will be caught up in it." Cangming seemed to have not heard it, with clear bones and clear joints. His hand, with veins as blue as jade, held the black seed and dropped it clearly. Just as Zhu Li thought his master didn't want to talk to him, the man's deep and magnetic voice rang out, "Go find someone. On the boat of the Qian family. The last one was found on the owner's house. Qian Xiaoman." Qian Xiaoman walked into the cabin candidly, his face raised high and unchanged. In no time, screams could be heard inside. "No. How could it be with me?" Qian Xiaoman's face turned red with fear and injustice. The door of the cabin was opened, and the maid presented the bouquet hairpin to Princess Chongyang. "I found it in Miss Qian's purse," she said suddenly, several officials who were dissatisfied with Qian Xiaoman covered their mouths and smiled. Among us, Qian Xiaoman's family has the lowest grade. She took the handkerchief from last time. Thief, it's really dirty. If I had known earlier, I wouldn't have come today. Princess, I really didn't steal your hairpin. I didn't. Qian Xiaoman explained to Princess Chongyang with tearful eyes. The princess of Chongyang pursed her lips and remained silent. Yan Bingqing suddenly understood after seeing this, borrowed a knife to kill. On this ship, she was the one with the worst relationship with Qian Xiaoman and the one who had the most contact with Princess Chongyang. After Qian Xiaoman was wrongly accused, the first enemy he would think of would only be her. I'm really not a thief. My family background is not as good as yours, doesn't it mean I can steal things? It's fortunate that I still invited you to take a boat today, and you falsely accused me like this. Qian Xiaoman cried out in frustration. Forget it, I don't want to pursue it anymore, said Princess Chongyang indifferently. Princess. What does it mean to forget, don't want to pursue it anymore? I really didn't steal anything. Qian Xiaoman anxiously blocked the exit. No one wants to believe it, the more excited Qian Xiaoman is, the more he appears guilty in the eyes of others. Yan Yujie saw the time had come and took a breath, ready to deliver a touching speech. I believe in Qian Xiaoman. Yan Bingqing said ahead of time. Yan Yujie choked, as if a fish bone had stuck in her throat. This is her word. Other officials looked at Yan Bingqing in surprise. Didn't Yan Bingqing dislike Qian Xiaoman very much? Why did you help her speak this time? Yan Yujie opened her lips again, ready to speak, but Yan Bingqing's voice was intercepted once again. For a woman, reputation is very important. If the word thief falls on an innocent person, their life will be ruined. Many people choose to commit suicide to prove their innocence. Can everyone bear to watch Qian Xiaoman seek death? Qian Xiaoman looked at Yan Bingqing in surprise. The others are also the same. Their relationship is clearly not good, and this Yan Bing halal is really brainless. Yan Yujie was so angry that she was half dead. All the good people were fooled by Yan Bingqing. When the time comes, Qian Xiaoman's greatest gratitude will not be to her, but to Yan Bingqing, who wasted her efforts. Yeah, why don't you think about who just met with Princess Chongyang? Who talked to the longest? Find out who is behind the scenes, so that other sisters won't be framed later. Yan Yujie added. Qian Xiaoman looked at Yan Bingqing with scorching eyes. At this moment, Yan Bingqing looked like a savior to her. Her hatred towards Yan Bingqing had dissipated, and she only wanted to grab this life-saving straw. I dare to report to the government. Shaming face, I don't want to. Princess Chongyang had already lost her patience at this moment. She shouldn't have condescended to participate in the Lashizi cruise. Yan Bingqing looked at the boat next to her and said, no need. I have an idea to uncover the mastermind behind the scenes. After getting off the boat, Yan Bingqing decisively walked up the steps to the next boat. Using leg treatment as a condition, she begged Cangming for personal assistance, and Cangming should be able to provide it. As soon as she boarded the deck, Julie pulled a maid from the palace and said, Miss Yan, this is the favor that the master has given you. Yan Bingqing's eyes sparkled with brilliance. In the blink of an eye, Grandma was taken onto the boat of the Qian family. The nanny looked ahead and introduced herself with lifeless eyes, I am the chief incense sniffer in the palace. Whoever touches something, I can smell it. The senses are complementary, although the sense of smell is good, the grandmother's vision is very poor. Yan Bingqing helped Grandma to the side of Princess Chongyang, and the maidservant presented the bouquet hairpin to Grandma. After sniffing it, Grandma said, the fragrance of gardenia and lily on top is the strongest. My hair oil is gardenia fragrance, and my maid dyed it while combing my hair, so her hands also have this smell, explained Princess Chongyang. Mammy's face suddenly turned to the other side. It's her. Only she smells of perfume lilies. Following the instructions of the mother, the suspect was locked down. Chapter 6. Her noble person. You are listening at novel full.audio. 3 or 4 people stood in the direction pointed by the grandmother, but the answer was not clear. Yan Bingqing instantly guessed the suspect. Jiang Shuer. Just now, Jiang Shuer has been driving the pace, accusing Qian Xiaoman of stealing 100 sparrow hairpins. And according to the original owner's memory, Jiang Shuer's father was also a military general, and she had some martial arts skills. Walking a hairpin can be said to be a piece of cake. Unfortunately, Jiang Shuer is just a knife for Yan Yujie. Picking out the tool person has no value to her, and she must maximize her value. Yan Yujie likes to form cliques, she can do it too. Yan Yujie, who was hidden in the crowd, had a sneer in her eyes. She had never touched the 100 sparrow hairpin, and there was no scent of her on it. What if Yan Bingqing catches Jiang Shuer? It's just a dog, and being found out is not a big deal. Mammy, just whisper to Princess Chongyang and Qian Xiaoman. If everyone knows, that young lady doesn't need to be a good person. Yan Bingqing said. Chongyang Princess and Qian Xiaoman were moved by Yan Bingqing's successive acts of kindness, and they also let go of their guard and agreed to Yan Bingqing's proposal. After everyone got off the ship, the nanny whispered, "It's the girl wearing a goose yellow jacket skirt." Jiang Shuer. Princess Chongyang and Qian Xiaoman spoke in unison. Qian Xiaoman gritted his teeth, eager to chase after the boat and scratch her face. Yan Bingqing tightly grasped her white wrist and said, "Don't be impulsive. I always feel like things are not so simple. Think about it, Jiang Shuer has no grudges or grievances with you and Princess Chongyang. Why did she wrongly accuse you? What benefits can she gain from wronging you? Is there a mastermind behind the scenes? Just ask and you'll know." Qian Xiaoman was eager to return the humiliation he had just suffered. Yan Bingqing frowned and said, "Why don't we forget about it? This is something that involves the disaster of imprisonment, so it's probably not easy to ask." "I understand what you mean, I can do it slowly." Yan Bingqing, thanks to you this time. It used to be my fault, but in fact, I am very jealous of you. Your father is a general, and my father is just a deputy general. Our family is being suppressed by your family everywhere, so I have nothing to do to cause trouble. Qian Xiaoman said in the end, his voice decreased, and his cheeks stained with shame. Yan Bingqing's unwavering loyalty to Guan heir, why is she trying to help Qian Xiaoman? Just don't help Qian Xiaoman, the disaster will fall on her, it's just self-protection. On the shore, Yan Yujie turned around and looked at Yan Bingqing on the ship, who was friendly with Princess Chongyang and Qian Xiaoman. She was filled with anger in her throat, wanting to vent but unable to do so. These were all supposed to belong to her, but they were all snatched by Yan Bingqing, who loves to meddle in her affairs. Although she knew that Yan Bingqing didn't know her strategy, she didn't mean to, but a sigh of frustration still lingered in her heart. Look, they are indeed natural enemies. Thinking of this, Yan Yujie's face turned abnormally white. Yujie sister, your face looks so ugly. Are you okay? The lady from the same group showed polite concern. She suppressed her jealousy and the corners of her mouth stiffened as she said, "Maybe the sun is too poisonous. I'm feeling a bit heatstroke, it's okay." At noon, Qian Xiaoman sent someone to invite Jiang Shuer back to the ship. Jiang Shuer didn't want to come, but she was afraid that Qian Xiaoman would escalate the matter, so she had to attend the appointment. "Why did you invite me out? It's noon, it's so hot in the cabin." Jiang Shuer pretended to be confused. Qian Xiaoman slammed his hand onto Jiang Shuer's shoulder and said, "Jiang Shuer, I used to think we had a good relationship, but that's how you treated me. What are you saying? I don't understand." Jiang Shuer dared not look at her. Qian Xiaoman's tone became cold as he said, "Do you still want to pretend? Everyone knows that you have martial arts skills, but only you have the ability to steal the princess's hairpin without realizing it, and put it in my wallet. I don't use lily fragrance on my body, I use rose fragrance on my body. I'm too lazy to tell you, I have to leave." Jiang Shuer quickly changed her powder when she returned to the mansion, stood up and walked outside the door. Her foot just stepped out of the threshold, and Qian Xiaoman said, "You have a head full of grievances and a debt owner. Did someone give you a benefit? I don't understand what you're saying." Jiang Shuer wanted to escape. Princess Chongyang blocked her way, and she sternly rebuked, "Bold. Do you think the mastermind behind the scenes is even more prominent than me in your heart?" Jiang Shuer's legs and stomach trembled, and her psychological defense line was about to be broken. "Me, I. Do you look down on me like this? Guess why we found you. If you don't tell the truth, I will arrest you and put you in prison according to her confession." Princess Chongyang's voice suddenly rose, and the oppressive feeling of imperial power shook her soul. "What? How dare she? I listened to her so much, and she turned the tables." Jiang Shuer collapsed, tears streaming down her face. Jiang Shuer took out a 50,000 taels silver bill from her arms and said fiercely, "It was all instructed by Yan Yujie to do it. She found out that my mother owed me gambling debts and knew that I needed money urgently. So, I beg you to spare me. We'll share this silver bill equally, no. Give it all to you. Silver bills are naturally not wanted by anyone." Qian Xiaoman's eyes were so angry that they almost stared out. How could it be Yan Yujie? Bitch. I treated her like a friend and even invited her to swim in the lake. Are you deceiving me? Jiang Shuer heard the flaw and was anxious. Please don't tell Yan Yujie. If she exposes my mother's affairs, my father will drive us out of the mansion. Jiang Shuer is the illegitimate daughter of the Jiang family, and her mother's status is low and precarious. Having obtained the desired information, Princess Chongyang and Qian Xiaoman were too lazy to bother and agreed to her request to let her leave. After getting off the boat, the Princess Chongyang's Feng Yan glanced sideways at Qian Xiaoman. "I almost misunderstood you today. I remind you that Yan Yujie is hurting you, but Yan Bingqing is saving you. We are just the knives of their sisters, especially you." This statement can be described as a wake-up call to the dreamer. Qian Xiaoman suddenly realized and said firmly, "Even if I were to make a knife, I only wanted to make the one in Yan Bingqing's hand. If it weren't for Yan Bingqing's intervention today, she would be doomed. It's good for anyone to use her, but Yan Yujie, this slut, can't be better off." On the other side, Yan Bing is holding a silver needle to give Mo Cangming acupuncture and moxibustion on the magnificent 3-story boat. Mo Cangming lay expressionless on the pear-blossom-wood noble concubine's bed, with dozens of silver needles piercing his knees through thin white silk pants. The scene was very frightening. "Miss Yan, the silver needles in the acupuncture and moxibustion bag are almost used up by you. Candoli really loves the master and can't help reminding him." Mo Cangming glanced at the peach blossom eyes that were curled up from the outside and hooked up from the inside, and fiercely gouged them out. He could feel a continuous stream of true qi flowing into the meridians along the silver needle, and this woman should not be underestimated. "Don't worry, I want to marry the regent. How can I let go of harming him?" Yan Bingqing lowered her head and earnestly injected, silently memorizing the ancestral Xian Yuan needle technique in her heart. Julie's face turned red. If someone else dared to be so frivolous and flirt with Mo Cangming, he would have lifted his hand and thrown him onto the wall, but when faced with this woman, his temper was always surprisingly good. Yan Bingqing finished administering the needle and couldn't help but sniff the air around Mo Cangming. His destiny is so sweet. The stench emanating from her replaced destiny seemed to have been diluted. Goodbye next time. She stood up and prepared to leave. Wait a minute, the magnetic male voice slammed down coldly. Yan Bingqing turned around and jokingly said, "Are you keeping me here to discuss marriage?" Cangming's sharp and angular contours were deep and cold, his gaze as cold as ice, sharp as an arrow, making people shudder. "I'll give it to you," he said lightly. A young woman in a double bun emerged from behind the screen, blessed with good fortune. She was wearing a blue-colored dress, with pure white skin and delicate features. "I have seen Miss Yan, servant Tangli," she said. "Is this?" Yan Bingqing was puzzled. Julie explained, "Miss Tangli is very capable. She can use her skills roughly below and gather intelligence and protect you personally." Yan Bingqing's apricot eyes seemed to be ignited and suddenly lit up. She looked at Cangming in surprise, revealing her standard 8 teeth and saying, "Thank you. Exploring intelligence, this can be of great use." Cangming looked at her sparkling water-colored eyes and joyful and charming expression, feeling a strange sense of security in his heart. "Don't let me down, my king," he said. "The next treatment is here, I will visit on my own." Yan Bingqing sighed in her heart at Cangming's ability to cover the sky with one hand. He is so timely that he can always provide crucial help when she needs it. Although knowing that everything Cangming did was to treat her legs, it did not prevent him from becoming her benefactor. Chapter 7. She's time to attack. You are listening at novel full.audio. After returning to the mansion, Yan Bingqing originally wanted to create an inconspicuous background for Tangli, but Tangli himself submitted a registration letter to the butler, detailing his background without raising any doubts. She couldn't help but smile. Cangming was quite well arranged. Returning to the Bingqing pavilion, Yan Bingqing eagerly assigned the first task, "Tangli, help me check Yan Changhe." "Yes." Tangli stepped out of the threshold with her front foot and disappeared in a flash. Yan Bingqing was deeply shocked, and even the maidservants sent to her by Cangming were so skilled. Even outsiders are working so hard, and as an official, she naturally dare not slack off at all. This is a big matter that affects her future life direction. If there is a slight mistake, she will be doomed. Yan Bingqing found the 7 kills talisman given by the Taoist, but this talisman has been soaked in water and is no longer useful. She drew a real safety talisman and secretly changed it for Huang, then took her to the Prime Minister's mansion. It's not enough to just apply eye drops to Huang. Yan Changhe was willing to deceive Huang and let her fall into a love trap, more because the Prime Minister's mansion is a powerful backer. It's time for Huang Yao to know some things. When he arrived at the Prime Minister's mansion, Huang Yao saw his daughter and granddaughter laughing uncontrollably. The three of them were chatting, while his grandmother Lu Hongyu hurriedly went to prepare dinner. "The sun is so poisonous, why are you here at this time? Be careful of heatstroke." Huang Yao smiled kindly and quickly asked his servants to pour cold tea. Huang pinched Yan Bingqing's nose and smiled indulgently. "Not Bingqing yet. She said she wanted to eat braised pork belly cooked by her grandmother. Greedy little cat. Yan Bingqing couldn't laugh and only let out a hum. Huang Yao's gaze fell on her with a hint of doubt. Huang chatted with Huang Yao for a while before remembering to come and go to the kitchen to give Lu Hongyu a hand. After the person left, Huang Yao smiled. His sideburns were graying, and the traces of wisdom accumulated over time were etched in the corners of his eyes. His eyes flashed with a shrewd light, ice clear. "You rarely came to see your grandfather with your mother before. What's up this time?" Yan Bingqing was taken aback, her eyes burning as she looked at him. Huang Yao received a hint from his granddaughter and got up to leave. He gestured for her to follow and took her to the study. "Tell me, there's no one else here." Huang Yao propped up his sandalwood desk and slowly sat on the Grand Tutor's chair. After withdrawing a few days ago, he felt like he had changed his mind and seemed to have grown up in an instant. Yan Bingqing lowered her eyes and tried to create a sad atmosphere. "My grandfather, my father. There's someone outside," she said. Wang Yao stroked his hand with his grey beard and suddenly paused. She dared not reveal Yan Yujie and Zhou Shuaqin's mother and daughter. After all, there was no definite or fatal evidence at the moment. I saw him holding hands with a woman in her 30s on the street, and there was a girl next to them who looked similar in age to me. There was silence indoors, and it was a while before Wang Yao spoke again. What? Yan Changhe, how dare he? He has a mistress and daughter, and has repeatedly said he wants me to recommend him to be promoted to Prime Minister. He wants to empty the Prime Minister's mansion and give up your mother. He slammed his desk hard. Wang Yao naturally did not hastily believe in Yan Bingqing. A few days ago, Wang Siki, a careless person, came to the mansion to borrow someone from him to verify the embroidery of Lao Shizi's peony. The actions of the mother and daughter corresponded, and Yan Changhe must have a ghost. Grandfather, don't be angry. It's not worth ruining your body for that kind of popularity. I came here just to remind you to be careful of Yan Changhe. Yan Bingqing recalled the scene that Tianyan had seen, and a faint blush couldn't help but rise at the end of her eyes. She took out the 7 kills of disaster talisman that had been soaked in water from her sleeve and said, I happened to meet a sorcerer on the street. He said that I was not wearing a safety talisman, but a 7 kills of disaster talisman. Wearing this talisman would lead to constant disasters and family destruction. I don't believe it, but I found that the talisman worn by Yan Changhe is indeed different from ours. Wang Yao's arms were trembling, and he clenched his fists, trying not to let her see his emotions. My grandfather knows that I and your grandmother will destroy the talisman. So, your mother. I have secretly replaced my mother with a safety talisman. My mother has a deep affection for him, so let's not say anything about it for now. I'm afraid my mother won't believe it. At this moment, there will be a commotion, revealing a loophole, and instead, it will startle the snake. Yan Bingqing analyzed in a clear and organized manner. Wang Yao looked at his granddaughter with satisfaction, and his anger that was about to break through his forehead eased slightly. Bingqing, you've grown up. You're more promising than your mother. Grandfather, I will take good care of my mother and protect the Prime Minister's mansion. Yan Bingqing patted his chest and helped him calm down. Wang Yao felt regretful that she was a girl and said, no. My grandfather will investigate. You just need to be the little princess of our Wang family happily. After you go home, don't hold any hostility towards your father, so as not to startle the snake. Yan Bingqing has a sour nose, and she also wants to. Unfortunately, the fate of the Wang family in the future does not allow her to take a break. After finishing dinner at the Prime Minister's mansion, Yan Bingqing and Wang Siki returned to the general's mansion. When I returned to my mansion, it was not yet dark and the lanterns were shining brightly. Qian Xiaoman's carriage will stop at the entrance of the general's mansion. Bingqing Pavilion. Qian Xiaoman told Yan Bingqing everything about noon. Yan Bingqing frowned and said, 50,000 taels. Yan Yujie casually makes a gesture of 50,000 taels, so generous. No wonder Yan Changhe always calls himself poor on weekdays. It turns out that he has emptied his entire family to give to Zhou Shuaqin and her daughter. She gets angry when she thinks that her monthly income is only 1 or 2 and she's not living as well as her illegitimate daughter. I'm also quite surprised that Yan Yujie is so wealthy, Qian Xiaoman said. Yan Bingqing smiled and said, congratulations on catching the mastermind behind the scenes. Qian Xiaoman pursed his lips and said, do you have a conflict with Yan Yujie? Actually, you knew she was targeting you. Do you want to use me to retaliate against her? I didn't want to involve innocent people. If I wanted you to do something, I would tell you directly, Yan Bingqing said calmly. Qian Xiaoman breathed a sigh of relief. As long as Yan Bingqing was honest with her, she didn't like people with deep intentions. She looked at Yan Bingqing with clear eyes and said, thank you for today's incident. Yan Yujie has offended me. If you need help in the future, you can tell me. Okay, Yan Bingqing personally escorted her out. Not long after seeing off Qian Xiaoman, Tang Li returned. Tang Li's little face was flushed with sweat, indicating that she had gone to many places to investigate the Yan River. Master, when I checked General Yan's whereabouts today, I found that there was a bodyguard whose whereabouts were exactly the same as mine. Guess who he is? Tang Li couldn't wait to share what he had seen. Yan Bingqing shook her head and said, I don't know. I heard your mother borrowed the person from the Prime Minister. Yan Bingqing's mouth curved upwards, and Huang became enlightened. Therefore, it would not be difficult to accept the cruel truth in the future. However, General Yan is really a good man who cares about his family. He usually stays at the school venue except for going to court and never socializes with his colleagues in restaurants. Moreover, he does not have a habit of eating, drinking, soliciting and gambling. Tang Li praised from the bottom of his heart. Her apricot eyes narrowed slightly, with a sinister gaze. Outsiders all think Yan Changhe is a good husband and father, but who would have thought such an honest person would raise his lover and illegitimate daughter under the watchful eye of his mistress? Dog thing, Yan Changhe owes her and the Huang family money, debt, and emotional debt, and she will recover them. Master, I don't think you need to worry. I have checked and found that General Yan has been full attendance in both court and school in recent years. Even at colleagues' gatherings, he will bring his wife to attend. Even if he has ulterior motives, he is also lacking in skills. Tang Li advised. Yan Bingqing returned to Tang Li with a shy smile and said, keep tracking, don't stop. She had seen Zhou Shuoqin's face before, and she was someone who was meticulous in her work and had a high level of cunning. With her as a military strategist supporting Yan Changhe, it is natural to add wings like a tiger. So even if we send spies to investigate, we cannot find any loopholes, which is exactly what makes Yan Changhe and Zhou Shuoqin headache. She should also take action. Since Yan Changhe has no flaws, she will let Yan Changhe reveal his flaws. Yes. Tang Li responded agilely. Chapter 8. The Curse Breaks. You are listening at novelfull.audio. The next day, while Yan Bingqing was drawing a peace symbol, the door was suddenly pushed open. She was busy and covered the talisman with her notebook, muttering, Dad, you don't even knock on the door when you enter my chamber. That's really it. Haha. Blame my dad, it's all my dad's fault. Dad still treats you like a child, forgetting that we, Bingqing, are already big girls. Yan Changhe smiled kindly and rubbed her head. Yan Bingqing breathed a sigh of relief. It seemed that Yan Changhe had not noticed. Dad, how did you come back from the schoolyard at noon? Her round eyes were clear and simple. Yan Changhe let out a long sigh with a pretentious expression and said, Bingqing, you should have heard about it, right? I don't know how Dad has made your mom angry these days. Your mom has been letting Dad sleep in the study. Yesterday, you went to the Prime Minister's mansion, and your mom didn't say anything to your grandfather, did she? Her eyes flashed with calculations, but before she could catch them, they disappeared and said, no. That's good, Yan Changhe patted his chest. But it's not certain next time. My mother often tells me that women only go back to their mother's house when they are wronged. Dad, you let my mother be wronged. She playfully raised her face. Yan Changhe raised his eyebrows and said, Bingqing, do you know why your mother is angry? Hurry up and play a trick on your father. Yan Bingqing patted her purse and said, I haven't had any money lately, I don't want to talk. Has your monthly income increased to 5 taels this month? He said pleasantly. The number of 50 liang almost made Yan Bingqing laugh out loud. It's ridiculous. Give the illegitimate daughter 50 liang of monthly money, give her 50 liang. Sorry to speak up, Yan Changhe. In recent years, the food, clothing, housing, and transportation of the original owner, Huang, and Yan Changhe mostly relied on Huang dowry or supplies from the Prime Minister's mansion. 60% of Yan Changhe's salary was given to Zhou Shuaqin's mother and daughter, and the rest was handed over, which moved Wang Siki particularly. But Wang Yao thought his daughter was used to spending money recklessly, so he asked his mother's family for money, and even felt guilty about Yan Changhe in his heart. No way. Buying a hairpin is not enough. Yan Bingqing shook her head vigorously. Yan Changhe swallowed his saliva and said in pain, so this month I'll give you an increase of 50 taels, and you happen to buy a hairpin. How about that? He must not let Wang Siki, this fool, complain. If it displeases Wang Yao, his long-awaited position as prime minister will be in vain. Okay. Yan Bingqing didn't dare to ask too much, so as not to let the fish run away. Yan Changhe said eagerly, Bingqing, do you know any insider information? Tell me quickly. Didn't my mother blame you for going out all day and not accompanying her? My mother said that she was almost laughed at by her little sisters. She didn't have her husband to accompany her, nor did she have any valuable jewelry or clothes. She felt empty in her heart, and nothing could be done. Yan Bingqing said. He sighed and said helplessly, I'm not going out for this family. I've said for a long time that making friends is easy to compare. You see, those vain people want to bring your mother down and make our family unhappy. Your mother only likes my porridge. Yan Bingqing couldn't handle it properly. She chuckled lightly and couldn't hide the contempt in her eyes. Dad, anyway, I can only help you get here. Whether or not I can change my mind depends on whether you are willing to spend money or not. Dad knows. It's just a little silver. As long as your mother is happy, you can take Dad's life, Yan Changhe smiled. She took the opportunity to remind her, I heard that there are many treasures flowing out of the palace in the treasure pavilion in the capital. Dad and Mom like the things there. Upon hearing the 3 words, treasure pavilion, Yan Changhe's face turned green. Thank you for your kind daughter's reminder. Dad knows. As the saying goes, if you can't bear to part with your child, you won't be able to catch a wolf. Taking out some private money and trapping Wang Siki is not a big deal. In the blink of an eye, Yan Bingqing disguised herself and arrived at the regent's mansion. Dormitory. Mo Cangming lay on the bed, holding a silver needle and piercing it into his knee. At the same time, a stream of true qi flowed into the veins of his knees, causing his unconscious legs to feel a long-lost temperature. This diagnosis and treatment came earlier than expected, he sarcastically said. She smiled obsequiously and said, other things are secondary. My main concern is still with the regent. You know my feelings. Let's talk. Mo Cangming's ears turned red, and he was too lazy to listen to her nonsense, directly hitting the red heart. Yan Bingqing looked around his sleeping room and expressed her demand, can the regent borrow some treasures that women like from me? The more expensive, the better. I want to sell them at the treasure pavilion and return them within a month at most. Mo Cangming gave Julie a glance, and Julie immediately walked towards the treasure trove of the mansion. Half a pillar of incense had passed, and Julie walked with 2 maids each holding a tray of advice. A pearl necklace and a dazzling piece of fabric were placed on the tray. Is this? Yan Bingqing asked curiously. Julie introduced, these are the South China Sea Night Pearl Necklace and Floating Light Brocade. The Night Pearl Necklace is a unique item, and as for Floating Light Brocade, there is only 1 piece in the entire capital. Yan Bingqing looked at Mo Cangming with a surprised smile. When the needle in his hand pierced his knee, he was careful not to pierce deep or shallow. This is her benefactor. She ordered, Tongli, help me put them in the treasure pavilion. Please let Yan Changhe buy them as much as you can, and I hope the whole capital will flock to these 2 treasures. Yes, Tangli hurriedly led the 2 maids down, ready to take action. Mo Cangming's obsidian-like eyes tilted as he looked at the cunning, intelligent, and scheming woman in front of him. He had a rare interest in exploring a woman, and without emotion, he asked, what are your plans to deceive Yan Changhe? He kept it a secret from me and my mother, bringing his mistress and illegitimate daughter into the mansion to be raised, and even changed my fate. I want him to die. Yan Bingqing didn't hide anything and said as if pouring beans. Cangming was taken aback, he didn't expect her to be so sincere. He has seen many people of all kinds, but he has never seen her so sincere. But he probably doesn't believe in ghosts and gods like changing his destiny. Does the regent wonder why I didn't hide it? She looked up with a smile and looked into his eyes. Because I want to marry you, there's no need to hide it from myself. Miss Yan is not serious again at the beginning. Candlely blushed. He was afraid that the master would be angry, so he hurried to teach him a lesson. Cangming, however, remained unusually calm. He simply closed his eyes in disgust and turned the jade ring finger of his left thumb as if nothing had happened. Yan Bingqing chuckled lightly and her hand movements became more agile. Suddenly, she saw a black aura surging between Cangming's eyebrows, faintly visible. Because his destiny was so blessed, she didn't pay attention to it just now, as the light of fortune was overwhelming the mold. Regent, your printing hall has turned black, and someone is trying to curse your luck and destroy your physical foundation. She pinched her finger, her pupils dimmed. Yan Bingqing is really angry. Her fate is already terrible, but how could anyone dare to touch her benefactor? I can't bear it. Prepare talisman paper and cinnabar, she ordered without hesitation. Julie obediently followed orders by divine intervention. Yan Bingqing held the talisman and drew an extremely complex talisman with a cinnabar brush. Give me the birth chart of the regent. Under the gaze of Cangming, Julie announced his birth date in 8 characters. After listening, Yan Bingqing bit her finger and dropped blood on the talisman. Burn it, and the ashes before the Shenshi period will be scattered into the lake to the east. Yes, the eunuch who served followed suit. At the same time, in the gloomy Taoist temple, the old Taoist on the altar suddenly opened his eyes, covered his chest and fell to the ground, spitting out a puddle of old blood. My curse has actually broken. Chapter 9. Peel off a layer of skin from the scumbag father. You are listening at Novel Full.audio. Under the control of a mysterious martial arts master, Cangming surprisingly felt that his tired body gradually regained energy and his mental state improved. He didn't know if Yan Bingqing had given him a psychological suggestion, but this woman was definitely not something in the pool. When Yan Bingqing finished acupuncture and moxibustion and was ready to get up, Julie received the master's hint. Miss Yan, are you really just drawing talismans and divining? Julie smiled and asked. She looked up casually at Julie's face and said firmly, you lack fire in your 5 elements. Before the age of 10, you often fell into the water and were pecked by roosters. Julie's name was changed at the age of 10 because you almost fell into a well and died early. Julie's mouth was half open, and there was a hint of respect in her eyes. Countless people can see that his 5 elements lack fire, and it is possible that the only one who changed his name when he was 10 years old was Miss Yan. Cangming sighed imperceptibly, and from Zhu Li's expression, it was probably true. Miss Yan, you are too divine, Julie said from the bottom of her heart. Yanbing got used to the reverence of her followers early in the morning and walked out without any concern. Suddenly, a deep male voice sounded from behind, who did it? Yan Bingqing tilted her lips and said, I don't know, but what's certain is that it's someone who can get your birth date and 8 characters. I've already been killed, please be careful. A few days later, the new arrival of the night pearl necklace and floating light brocade in the treasure pavilion was well known throughout the capital. Many wealthy women and housekeepers went together to visit treasures, and they couldn't put them down. Unfortunately, after hearing the price, they could only leave with a sad heart. The treasures of the treasure pavilion have become a topic of discussion for every household after tea and dinner. Even if you only take a glance, you can talk about them all afternoon. These days, it has been heard that many women in the capital are crying and fighting with their husbands at the mansion over two treasures. On the day before Huang Siqi's birthday, Yan Bingqing calmly drew a peace symbol in front of the table. Previously, the Huang family would wear the 7 kills of disaster talisman with them. If they suddenly don't wear it tomorrow, it may arouse suspicion from Yan Changhe, so they still have to wear it. Tongli, please send these 2 talismans to my maternal grandfather and grandmother, Yan Bingqing said and drew another talisman. Send this to the regent. Tongli took the talisman and whispered. The informant said that General Yan spent a lot of money on the night pearl necklace and the floating light brocade. How much silver did you spend? Yan Bingqing asked curiously. The night pearl necklace costs 30,000 taels of silver, and the floating light brocade costs 50,000 taels. It is said that General Yan has pawned his rice fields and storefronts, and the servants in the manor have all sold them to raise the funds. It is estimated that he has not much money left, Tongli said incredulously. Yan Bingqing smiled quietly. These 2 things added up to only 5 million taels of silver, but Yan Changhe spent more than 6 times the price. Yan Changhe has been severely skinned. She wants him to spit out all the benefits he has taken from the Huang family over the years. In the afternoon, Qian Xiaoman and a group of official ladies all came upon hearing the wind. Yan Bingqing took them to the backyard connected to the west wing and invited Yan Yujie. Bingqing, tomorrow is your mother's birthday. The necklace and floating light brocade that your father bought must be for your mother. Qian Xiaoman said enviously. Another official lady said, I guess the necklace is for your mother. The floating light brocade is only 50,000 taels of silver, so it should be for you. Bingqing, your floating light brocade will be made into a dress. Can you give me a try? Qian Xiaoman said straightforwardly. Yan Bingqing glanced at Yan Yujie and smiled, if my dad really gave me a gift, I will definitely borrow it. Ha, don't be humble. Your father is famous for hurting you and your mother, others joked. Yan Yujie, who was submerged in the crowd, suppressed her unwilling gaze and had already been sarcastically mocked several times in her heart. Dad doesn't care about Huang Siqi and Yan Bingqing. He loves her and his mother the most. If it weren't for the position of Prime Minister, my father would have retired Huang Siqi long ago. The poor creature in the dark, foolish and deserving of such a precious gift. She found a reason and returned to the west wing to rest. As soon as she entered the door, Yan Yujie couldn't wait to walk up to Zhou Shuoqin. She had a bright smile and said, Mom, have you heard about it? Dad bought a night pearl necklace and a floating light brocade, which must have been given to us. Yan Bingqing is so foolish. Silly Yujie, the floating light brocade is probably meant to deal with Huang Siqi. The night pearl necklace is ours, and your father is always like this. Last time I casually mentioned that he likes necklaces, he foolishly spent so much money on them for me. Zhou Shuoqin looked happy, and at last, her cheeks blushed with shyness. Yan Yujie pounced into her arms as if coquettishly, and she swore confidently, Dad loves us the most. I will definitely turn Yan Bingqing into a mouse in the sewer and take back Dad. At night, as soon as Yan Changhe returned to the mansion, he prepared to entrust his confidant to deliver the night pearl necklace to Zhou Shuoqin in the western wing. This night pearl necklace is worth 30 million taels and cannot be given to the Huang family for nothing. As for the floating light brocade, which is only 50,000 taels, it is worth moving Huang Siqi, a foolish woman. A figure suddenly emerged from the darkness. Yan Bingqing threw herself into Yan Changhe's arms, hugging his waist and acting coquettishly, Daddy, you're back. Hee, Bingqing, it's so late, you still haven't slept. Yan Changhe felt inexplicable and forced out a smile. She looked up and asked naively, Dad, are you going to give me a surprise? Surprise? What surprise? Yan Changhe was bewildered. The whole capital knows about it. You bought a night pearl necklace and a floating light brocade, and I told my grandfather about it. Is it possible that you're not planning to give me the floating light brocade and my mother the night pearl necklace? She looked innocent and pure. Yan Changhe's mouth was half open, his heart was dripping blood. He paused before speaking. Bingqing, did you really tell your grandfather? She stuck out her tongue and apologetically said, I'm so happy. I can't help but. He wished he could strangle the fool in front of him. What does she say when she's free? 30 million taels of silver, but almost all of his wealth, he will have to hand it over to Huang for free. Yan Changhe felt very strange. He had told the people in the treasure pavilion not to spread it, so why is it still known that everyone is still causing trouble? Well, yes, it's for you and your mother. Yan Changhe smiled with an ugly expression. Thank you, Dad. You can give me the floating light brocade first, and I'll ask Xiaonyang to make a horse-face skirt for me. Yan Bingqing didn't leave any room for it, as if she didn't see his unwillingness. Yan Changhe nodded heavily, feeling as if someone was cutting his flesh with a knife. Bingqing, I've said it all. Don't be so eager to ask your father for a gift. It's really unruly. It's so late, and I've even blocked your father's doorstep. Changhe, I've cooked noodles for you. Huang Xiqi's attitude suddenly changed, and his gaze at Yan Changhe was filled with tenderness. Yan Changhe bought 2 valuable treasures. In the afternoon, Huang Xiqi's little sisters tipped her off. Now she is full of joy, and even begins to blame herself for being too cautious and should not have suspected her husband. Look, Dad, Mom has forgiven you. Yan Bingqing squeezed his eyes at him. Yan Changhe's heart is like a spring breeze turning into rain. Huang Xiqi stopped making trouble and it was worth it. He doted and rubbed her head, thanks to you, my good daughter. As the saying goes, a few people are happy and a few people are worried, but the next few days in the West Wing will be difficult for some people. Chapter 10. Crazy with Jealousy. You are listening at Novel Full.Audio. The next day was Huang Xiqi's birthday, and half of the noblewomen in the capital went to the general's mansion to celebrate their birthday. Wang Yao and Lu Hongyu arrived early in the morning, with talismans stacked into triangles hanging from their bodies. Yan Changhe was very satisfied when he saw this scene. Halfway through the banquet, Yan Changhe presented the necklace to Huang Xiqi in front of everyone and carefully personally put it on for her. This envies others. Almost all the female relatives surround Huang Xiqi with the stars and moon, hoping to see the charm of the night pearl necklace. Huang Xiqi's cheeks blushed as she gazed at Yan Changhe with a bright smile, full of love. She was overjoyed not only because of the envious gazes from others and the preciousness of the night pearl, but also because the men around her were willing to spend all their wealth to make peace with her. He cared about her. Madame Yan has such a good eye for choosing such a kind-hearted and successful husband, an official joked. Many wealthy women glanced coldly at their husbands, as if complaining. Wang Yao and Lu Hongyu, who were sitting at the VIP table, couldn't laugh. The Phoenix man who ate out of household unexpectedly became a good husband in everyone's hearts. Is there any natural reason? What nobody noticed was that Zhou Shuaqin in the corner looked at the necklace around Huang Xiqi's neck, her eyes burning red with jealousy. She held back her tears and said to Yan Yujie firmly, Yujie, many distinguished guests have come today. Do you know what to do, right? Mom is a bit tired, so let's go back to the house and rest first. Yan Yujie felt like she had been stabbed with a knife in her heart. She felt very sorry for her mother, knowing that she pretended not to care because she was considering the overall situation. Mother, don't worry, I will take this opportunity to make more friends with the powerful. She squeezed out a smile, not wanting to disappoint Zhou Shuaqin. Zhou Shuaqin responded and walked towards the west wing with a cold gaze. After seeing off Zhou Shuaqin, Yan Yujie squeezed into a group of similarly aged official ladies, wanting to showcase her long-sleeve dancing skills, when she was interrupted by an exclamation. Look! Bingqing is so beautiful. Qian Xiaoman pointed to the side door and praised loudly. Everyone turned their faces and saw a burst of envy in their eyes, as if they had seen a rare treasure. Yan Bingqing wore a blue horse-face skirt and walked gracefully into the banquet hall through a transparent crystal bead curtain. Her watery eyes sparkled, carrying a pure and casual look, icy and striking. In just a few hours, Xiao Nyang turned the floating light brocade into a horse-faced skirt. This is a blue brocade, and under the illumination of light, the silky satin shimmers like ripples of water. This is floating light brocade. Dresses made of it look more beautiful than fabric. Another official lady Wang Siki looked at her daughter with indulgence and pride, sincerely praising her. Ice halal is really beautiful. I didn't expect your father to have such a taste. Yan Changhe gave a loyal smile and said, Madam, where are these words? You and Bingqing are the most important people in my life. I will choose a gift for you, and of course, I will not forget our precious daughter. The guests laughed when they saw the usually majestic General Yan Changhe so afraid of his wife, and the atmosphere was joyful. But Yan Yujie was so jealous that she went crazy. How could her father give such a good treasure to this silly mother-daughter? These treasures are clearly hers and her mother's. She didn't want to see the proud faces of the mother and daughter again, but unfortunately couldn't leave. She took a few deep breaths and disguised herself with a peaceful smile. Yan Bingqing gave Wang Siki a plate of homemade pastries, so she took the ladies from various families to the backyard to chat. Bingqing, you agreed to borrow our dress, said a young official. The other few who are straightforward should also agree, we also need it. Yan Bingqing responded and said, okay, I'll change my clothes and lend you a try. Sister Bingqing, you are so kind. Several little girls held her arm and praised her. Yujie, would you like to give it a try? Asked the young lady. Yan Yujie's facial features twitched slightly, and she looked indifferent to fame and fortune. I don't like dressing up, it's just a piece of fabric, nothing unusual, she said. In fact, she wished she could tear her skirt into pieces. These people who flattered Yan Bingqing should have flattered her, but they were all taken away by Yan Bingqing. Why do everyone revolve around Yan Bingqing? Yan Bingqing and Wang Siki have taken away her father, so everything that belongs to Wang Siki's mother and daughter should belong to them. Yan Bingqing's mouth curved with a hint of ridicule, and upon hearing her words, she felt relieved. Her plan began to take effect. While Yan Bingqing was changing clothes in her bedroom, Qian Xiaoman whispered through the screen, Bingqing, do you still dislike Yan Yujie? Is there anything I need to do? In the next few days, just praise me more in front of her, Yan Bingqing said with great reluctance. Despite her doubts, Qian Xiaoman didn't ask much. She wasn't good at thinking about these convoluted things. Upon receiving instructions, Qian Xiaoman returned to the backyard and deliberately said in front of Yan Yujie, I really envy Bingqing. My mother is the daughter of Prime Minister Huang, and my father dotes on his wife and daughter a lot. Unlike some illegitimate daughters who say grapes are sour when they cannot eat them. Yujie, do you think so? Yan Yujie's face turned green. Qian Xiaoman saw the effect and continued to stimulate, ice-clear family backgrounds are all top-notch, and reincarnation is really a difficult task. Even if my father is prominent and becomes an illegitimate daughter, it's not possible. Her every word accurately stepped on Yan Yujie's pain point, poking her lung tube. Shuer, let's go for a walk by the lake. Yan Yujie gave Jiang Shuer a glance and didn't want to be with the fool in front of her anymore. Jiang Shuer had long harbored a grudge against Yan Yujie, but she didn't resist because she was worried that Yan Yujie would expose her mother's affairs. How can we let go of such a good opportunity now? She pretended not to hear and added, yes. I envy Sister Bingqing. Yan Yujie didn't expect Jiang Shuer, a fool, to dare to resist her. She was so angry that she trembled all over and couldn't pretend to be quiet and elegant anymore. She ran towards the west wing in embarrassment and fled in despair. When Yan Bingqing walked to the round gate, she happened to see this scene and looked admiringly at Qian Xiaoman and Jiang Shuer. In the quiet of the night, a secluded western room. Yan Yujia lay on Zhou Shuaqin's lap and wept, "Mom, how could Dad give those scumbags the floating light brocade and night pearl necklaces? Why? Fool, this is all for the sake of our family of 3 being together in the future." Although Zhou Shuaqin was unhappy in her heart, she didn't want to affect her father's position in her daughter's heart. "Mom, does Dad still care about us? He hasn't even come to see us recently." Yan Yujia was so aggrieved that tears streamed down her face. Zhou Shuaqin covered her with a blanket and her eyes were sinister. "If your father doesn't care about you, how could he let that lowly girl exchange her fate with you? He doesn't care about Yan Bingqing at all, he only has you as his daughter in his heart." "I don't believe it." Yan Yujia turned her back and rested her pillow, not wanting to talk to Zhou Shuaqin. This is Yan Yujia's rare resistance and disobedience. Zhou Shuaqin was too lazy to persuade anymore. She knew that her daughter had been hurt today. Not to mention her daughter, she almost lost her composure today. With a myriad of thoughts and complexities, she vaguely felt that something was wrong with what had happened recently. It seemed that someone should be ordered to investigate. When preparing to turn off the lights, the door was knocked. Yan Changhe pushed the door in and said, "Shuaqin, I miss you so much."